You know what's worse than a politician spending your money? A politician spending your money to get themselves reelected and maybe even name a building after themselves while they're at it. That's the beauty of earmarks. They're back, and they're bigger than ever, and they're completely corrupt. Earmarks are what politicians use to quietly slip money into bills for pet projects in their districts, projects that didn't go through the normal review process. These can be bridges, parking lots, airports, stadiums, or even research studies like, say, whether shrimp can run on a treadmill. And politicians love earmarks because they get to go home, point at these projects, and say, "Look what I brought you." Never mind the fact that it was your tax dollars to begin with. They act like they personally reached into their pockets and funded a new museum or a university building when, in reality, they're just reallocating your money to serve their political careers. Now, earmarks are controversial. Some people argue they're wasteful, corrupt, and encourage reckless government spending. Others say they're an essential tool to help lawmakers direct funds to projects their communities actually need, cutting through the bureaucratic red tape that might otherwise stall progress. But let's break it down. On the one side, earmarks are often called political crack because once politicians get a taste, they can't stop. There's no competitive bidding, no requirement that a project is actually necessary or even efficient. Instead, members of Congress hand out taxpayer-funded gifts to their districts to boost their re-election chances. And the worst part, they've been used for outright corruptions. We just learned that Rhode Island Senator Sheldon Whitehouse pushed for millions of dollars in earmarks that directly benefited his personal family. That's not just unethical, that's a direct abuse of power, and he's not alone. Last year, the top 62 earmarkers in the House were Republicans. 8 of the top 10 in the Senate were Republicans. Senator Susan Collins earmarked the equivalent of $2,640 per family in Maine, and Mitch McConnell was the biggest spender, securing nearly $500 million in earmarks. That's $500 million in taxpayer money directed towards pet projects that didn't have to compete for funding in a fair and open process. Now, let's be fair, supporters of earmarks say that they serve a legitimate purpose. They are that sometimes the federal government doesn't prioritize local needs, and earmarks allow representatives to step in and get things done. They say that without earmarks, decision-making is left to unelected bureaucrats who might not understand what specific communities need. They also claim that earmarks help cut deals and build coalitions in Congress, allowing legislators to work together on major bills that might otherwise never pass. And there's some truth to that. Not every earmark is a wasteful vanity project. Some fund real infrastructure improvements, essential community programs, and research that might not get approved through the normal process. Sometimes projects get blocked for purely political reasons, and earmarks allow legislators to break that gridlock. But here's the problem. The second you open the door for legitimate earmarks, the floodgates burst open for corruption. And that's exactly what happened. In 2011, Congress banned earmarks after too many scandals. But in 2021, they brought them back. And since then, the spending has exploded. We're now approaching pre-ban levels, meaning Congress has learned absolutely nothing. John Hart from Open the Books warns that earmarks are back to being a tool for career politicians to protect their own power. And if we don't stop them, they'll keep expanding, pouring billions into pet projects while the national debt skyrockets. So what do we do about it? Some say we need transparency. Every earmark should be made public before a full vote, with a full explanation as to where the money is going and why. Others say we should require competitive bidding, so projects actually go to the best options, not to politicians' friends and donors. And there's the nuclear option, to just ban them again, this time for good. The bottom line is this: earmarks aren't just about spending, they're about power, and how that power is being used to benefit politicians, not taxpayers. Earmarks aren't bad policy, they're just a political equivalent of stuffing a fat wad of cash into your politician's pocket and then thanking them for it. Here's a list of some projects that have been earmarked. I did mention it earlier, but $3 million was actually spent studying shrimp running on a treadmill so that they could study stress responses. Shrimp on a treadmill. $1.3 million went to study how dust moves in Kansas. like really, $500,000 for hipster parties in Washington, D.C. They wanted to figure out ways to bring people together or something. $175,000 was used to study what people tweet about. Like, that's research that's readily available to anybody with a search engine. $5.2 million went to teach fish how to swim. $6 million went for lobster tanks and high-end restaurants. So these are just some examples of earmarks that are just absolutely ridiculous, and we've got to do something about it. So now you've got something to talk about with your community. So anyway, good luck on the campaign.